Thanks so much for being here with us. My name is Jeff French. I've been building in the collectible space for a long time. I'm a lifelong collector. I'm a data nerd. We've gathered a lot of data in the CCG realm because I partnered with some really amazing folks to build in this space. And I'm super excited about that. And we're going to unpack a little bit of that data that we're things that we're starting to find that I think are very unique, and I think that you'll be interested in these things. With me today is my good friend Christopher Fisher. Fish has been a advisor to me for a very long time. His resume is incredibly deep, and he's got some other specific skills that make him really well suited to help me with this particular product or project. Fish, you want to maybe jump in a little bit, give a quick background on yourself and why you're so well suited to help out with this?
Yeah, I've business-wise, I've taken companies before and scaled them up and be able to get more people involved, customers, players, whatever it might be, involved in the actual company in different projects. That's my background, operations, making things grow. But really, what's important to me right now and what you've been doing is the TCG or CCG, in this case, games that you're creating, which is Wonders of the First. Absolutely so ecstatic about it. The reason why? I started Magic in 1995. That is 2 years after they actually first came to market. And I've been playing ever since, like 26 years plus. And I've been playing with the same group of friends back then that I do today. In fact, when I had my son, who's 11 now, when he was 6 years old, I taught him Magic. And that's actually how he learned some of his vocabulary is off of the descriptions on the cards.
Nice.
And yeah, and it was crazy, and he's really good at it. But what was really crazy is we actually went to a tournament. He wanted to play in one, and I had to get special. I had a disposition to be able to actually read the cards to him. So we had to ask each opponent, "Hey, is it okay if I read the cards because he doesn't know how to read yet?"
That's awesome.
And they said yes.
That's
And
awesome.
so he actually won one game in that tournament, and he's been talking about it ever since.
So he when somebody said, "Do you need some tutoring?" He's sitting there looking for a deck of cards to dive into instead of thinking that he needs help with
Yeah,
his math after school. That's awesome, man. I love it.
yeah, that's right. Exactly right. He loves doing that. He loves deck building. It's awesome. So when you approached me and actually said you're creating this new CCG game, I was so excited. And so one of the things that's really impressive about you and what you've done all along is you've taken a data-driven approach to collectibles. I have actually been in the collectibles that you have created, and I've actually bought and sold some for quite a bit of money. Me personally, I have actually bought them for less than $5 and sold them for $200 to $300. I've done that multiple times. Sports collectibles, other types of collectibles. And I actually saw the other day, this is crazy. The other day, there was someone who actually bought something about 2 years ago off of your collectibles that you created that was for a few dollars. And 2 years later, they sold it for $50,000. It's not exaggeration, it's reality.
Yeah, that was a fun
And
one.
it's
I
so
saw that
impressive.
on Twitter. I was pretty excited about that. And a great guy, and the collector that ended up buying that, really a long-term thinker and someone that, he's the buyer of that's one of the largest numismatic collectors on the planet. And just, he's but yeah, that was a great one to see for sure.
Yeah, and it wasn't just $50,000. There's been more around 10,000, 20,000. And all these started out so low, right? Because you make them accessible to people, which
Right.
is really important.
Yep.
And one of the things I really love about it is you've always said you're a data-driven person. You actually look at the data and you take some insights from it and then apply it to both your collectibles and in this case, Wonders of the First CCG game. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. I mean, I've been in technology since my whole life. I did my first company right at the implosion of the dot-com boom, and I've been in the space ever since. And we actually, as my agency company, which is Loud Door, has two patents on what's called lookalike audience targeting. And in doing that, we gather massive amounts of data, understand the attitudes of people, how they think and feel about certain topics. And then we take that data and we use it to help build enterprise campaigns at scale. The clients for that, Fortune 100, Fortune 500 type companies. So these are big enterprise type projects that we service through that agency. And so we've solved some really complex problems in that. But what we do that's different than the rest of the world is if you go out and you say, I want to run a survey, there are tons of companies that will do that for you. They give you platforms to do it yourself. A survey is only as good as the way it's constructed and the people that take it. And the second part of
Yep.
that is where most companies get it wrong. Because what happens is in the world of market research, everyone goes out to these panel providers. You could go today and you do a fairly nice market research study. You can get into your sampling for 10 grand or less, right? And get a
Yep.
sample down to a 5% margin of error. We we actually sample people that other people are unable to reach, but it costs exponentially more to do it because we have specific strategies to get doctors and lawyers, the type of people that will not take a survey in exchange for a 50 cents coupon. We are able to get those people. And what that does is it removes non-response bias from research. It's critical.
Mm.
And it's one of the things that allows us to have better data. It's what my clients pay me for on the agency side. And it's something that we've brought into the world of collecting. And we have absolutely uncovered a lot of things that have allowed us to understand hidden market sentiments that other people just straight miss on. And a lot of people that are probably watching this have probably taken one of our studies, the one we're doing on CCG sentiments and
Yep.
their behaviors and how they think and feel around CCGs. And there are some things in here that I think are going to absolutely shock the market. And I can't wait to share it with everyone that's watching today.
I think that's great. In fact, you had tasked me to take a look at some of this data, both from a business aspect and also as a player and over 25 years playing CCG games, and take a look at it and what really stood out. And you asked me to do it for a few different areas. It was pretty open ended. And the biggest thing of all was about collectability and value of cards,
Yep.
and it shocked me.
Yep.
So why don't we dive into that a little bit? Why don't you show us what you actually did for the questions, what the answers were, and the insights we got from it?
Yeah. So one of the first things that we did is we went out and we asked a pretty simple question. We asked the market, what percentage of TCG/CCG enthusiasts do you think would say these cards are game pieces and secondary market value increasing doesn't matter to me, or it matters very little? This is a narrative that
Right.
is pervasive in a
Yeah.
lot of the content that we watch, right? You can go on and you can listen to Rudy on one side arguing against the game piecers, and he's got his thing, and people hate Rudy for this, that, and the other. And then you have other people who very much champion the game piece sentiment. And we've seen big companies shift to that sentiment of game pieces because it's a very vocal segment of the market. It
Yeah.
feels almost overwhelming at times, the amount of game piece sentiment that's out there. Like if you just hint at the idea that you might consider a piece of cardboard an investment that you want to leave to your kids, people think a large segment of the market think you're absolutely insane. So we asked this question to people: what do you think the market, the other people believe? And this is the way the question was stratified. And here are the results to this. So buckle up, Buttercup, because there's about a 90% chance you have no idea what's about to happen here. So we ended up, for that one question, we ended up taking 1,007 self-identifying CCG enthusiasts with best in class, making sure that we filled out all the different cohorts, your age, your locations, your gender, to match it back to the overall relativity that those people are participate in CCGs as a whole. And this is what we found. So when you look at this, this is again asking people, what percent of the market do you think are game piecers? If we just boil it down to that simple thing. And if you look right there in the middle, the highest one, 30% of people are saying, a little over 30%, say that they think 20 to 40% of the market feels that way. Then another 20 plus percent say they think 40 to 60% of the market feels that way. Then you have roughly 10% of these respondents, the people answering, that say, I think 60 to 80% of people are game piece people. They don't care about the secondary market value. They only care about these as game pieces. And a whopping, nearly unbelievable, right at 8%, say that 80% of the market feels that way. All the way down at
So
the bottom, the people that are kind of the outlier, is you have less than 10% of people saying, I think it's under 10%. right? So that's the way the data shook out. And again, this is asking people how they think that other people would answer this particular question.
So, Jeff, I just want to make sure that I can break this down a little bit. So, the majority of people think that TCG and CCG games are played by people that are game piece people or the players themselves, and they don't care about value. I mean, that's what I see from this response.
That's definitely the sentiment. The market believes that the game piece narrative is what it is. I mean, and that's why we see it in so many YouTube videos, and we see it in the comments of YouTube videos where it's just it's definitely that is out there, that is the pervasive view, and that's what the market thinks. But not so fast. Let's not go quite so fast, because then what we did is we followed this up with our more robust study. So we did these early things to understand how the market thinks other people feel, and those things are good for us to understand. And we did that to a really good sample size. That's down margin of errors in the twos for that sample size. But then for the enterprise side, to really get the data that we're going to build off of, now we're talking about 15,000 respondents. Okay, because we need to be able to get really granular into that data to understand and unpack what people are thinking and feeling, to help us understand how to create and make better products for people. And so we had a question in that larger enterprise study where we said, which of these best represents your interest in TCGs/CCGs? I refer to CCGs because I like the word collectible. I know a lot of people say TCGs, so we try to make sure that it's clear. But we use those two terms interchangeably. So let's just, for the record, we'll stop saying that with the slash. We'll just pick one or the other. If you want to say TCG, that's fine. I'll use CCG.
Okay.
So then people say, I'm a player. I want cards to be cheap so that we can have fun. Another option was, I consider myself a player, but I want cards to hold and grow in value. So, a value sentiment there that's, yeah, I want it, but it's not necessarily the strongest and most overbearing thing for me. Then you have, I balance between collector and player, but card value is very important to me. Keyword in there being very important. Then you have, I consider myself a collector first, but I also like to play. And that one also had the card value is important. Shorten it up for these slides here. And then it says, then the final one was, I'm a collector. Card value is what matters to me. That's the person that, doesn't play really at all. They just collect. And it's the evil investor, the evil collector is kind of how you'll hear some of those get referred to on social media. So that's the way we went, and we asked 15,000 people how they themselves think and feel about this issue. Now, buckle up. Here's our responses.
Wait, can I stop you there a second? Because you asked me the same question. You said, hey, Fish, what do you think it is?
Yep.
And I answered, and I'll tell you my answer at the time. It was like something like 40% of the people to 50% of the people. This is before I knew what the choices were. 40 to 50% of the people are players only, or only really care about that. And then the real data came out and you told me.
Yeah.
Please,
sure.
Go.
So if we look at the real data, that player only game pieces sentiment, only right at 10% of people said that. Wow. In fact, let me, just so we didn't put it in this slide, but just so that I can hit the exact number for people. The exact number it's actually 10.6%. So 10.6% of the people are the ones that fall into that particular cohort of players, the game piece people. These are the people that truly echo that sentiment that we feel so strongly when we read content, or we see a lot of the people that produce the content, and it's 10.6% of people. Player first, but value is very important to me. That goes to 21.4%.
Wow.
Okay. So they like to play the game. It's important, but value is important to them. 21.4%. Those are the two softest sentiment segments. You've got the 10 points as far as it relates to value. Only 10% are player only game piecers. And then you have this other 21% that say, I'm a player, but yeah, it is important. Then you start moving up that value spectrum of how important it is. Then you have people that say, I'm a player and a collector, but value is very important. That comes in at 30%. 30%, 3 times the number of people that answered that they're a player only and it's game pieces. But we're not done yet. Then you have your collector first, but they like to play. So they collect it, yes, but they like to play. But they also are values very important. That cohort comes in at 18.4%. And then you have the one that sits at the opposite end of the game piece spectrum. These are the
Yep.
people that are collectors only. These are the evil investors. 18.9% of respondents came in
Wow.
with that sentiment, almost double the number of people that are collector only, that only care about value, versus the percent of people that are players only and only care about the opposite end of that value, wanting that value to be as low and accessible as it can be. That, to me, when I saw that, it was mind
Yeah.
blowing. And I know why some other research hasn't surfaced this. If we had only gone to a panel provider, panel
Mm.
providers use people that take surveys in exchange for some type of small trinket. It may be some points. It may be they'll send you a free gift of some sort, something small. Usually it's points and you have to add them up, and then you can cash them in for something. That's generally the
Yep.
world of survey paneling, because I get paid to take a survey and it's like 50 cents or something or whatever. The amount that someone makes per hour doing that is way below minimum wage, way below.
Right.
So what happens there is the people that will take those surveys that panel
Hmm.
companies provide, they bias very heavily to lower income. They bias very heavily to folks that would just be inherently more likely to want products to be cheaper. And so if you go to a panel provider and you get a CCG audience, and within that CCG audience, they're basically taking, okay, here's our big panel that we have. And if Verizon comes in, they may want wireless customers. They'll
Right.
sample those for Verizon. If big CCG comes and says, we want to run a survey to CCG enthusiasts, they will reach in that same barrel and they'll fish out the people that play CCGs. But they're finding people who are exponentially more likely to skew to the game piece side.
Yeah.
Our data
Yep.
different. A lot of you that are watching this, if you participated in our study, you probably found it via an advertisement. We did not get any of you from a panel provider.
Mm.
None of you that took this survey got points or anything like that to take the survey. Some of you came because we just said we wanted your opinion. We gave away a few prizes and said we'll enter you to win this prize. And then we have ways to look at that to make sure that we're sampling all the way across all of the different cohorts that we need. And that is literally the difference in good data and bad data, along with the construction. So very confident. I am very confident in what this data is showing. And to the extent other companies have built and relied on different things from market research, I believe it's because they went to a panel provider, they got the wrong people, they had a much higher cohort of game piecers taking the study, and it told them that the market sentiment was much higher. And then that gets validated by what we feel online. Because Fish,
Yeah.
that's what made you say it was so much higher, because you
I know.
feel it. You see it in the comments. You see it in the content that we get fed. And it's really heavy and aggressive in the comments, almost to the point where folks that are game piece people, they are literally adversarial against the idea that someone would spend money on an expensive card, and they see it almost as an evil thing. And so they feel like
Right.
they're on the side of truth and justice, and they're so vocal that they drown out the rest. And I think it becomes exhausting for others to argue with it. So they
Yes.
just say, screw it, I'm not going to argue. And so you get
Yep.
this crowd very vocal that creates the perception that it's more than it really is. And the data that we have is telling us that. So I believe that we are going into this build with, frankly, better data. Now, some people that are watching this right now might be saying to themselves, hey, sure, whatever, that has to be skewed by all those greedy MetaZoo MFers. My community doesn't feel that way. All right. Well, one, it's not skewed. We did a lot of work to make sure that we didn't skew it, that it didn't have those biases in it. I tried to unpack that for you. But now let's do this. Let's look at it, because we have 15,000 respondents here. Let's
That's
do
a
what's
lot.
called a crosstab in research terms. Let's look at how only the people that list Magic the Gathering as their favorite game, what do they say? What do people that list Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or people that list Flesh and Blood as their favorite game? What does those cohorts think? Let's unpack that a bit.
Great.
Here's that data. So this is cross-tabbed by franchise. And so what you see here on the far left, that's Magic the Gathering. And what we're seeing is we see the red is your player-only game piecers, and the blue
Yep.
is the exact opposite spectrum. They're the collector only care about the card value. And then in the middle, you have those two sentiments, the softer sentiment of, yeah, I'm a player and collector, but value is important to me. And then you have the dark green is it's very important to me. So it's like I'm a player, but it's very important. So this kind of takes you through a
Right.
spectrum here, right? Now, for Magic the Gathering, it is the one with the highest game piece sentiment of the other franchises. Makes a little bit of
Right.
sense. Obviously, super big competitive play scene. The most entrenched when it comes to number of hands and games played per year. Magic, big time leader in that. So you just end up with more play in the Magic franchise, and it helps that a little bit. Whereas on the other side, you look at Pokemon. Pokemon has a much bigger franchise, different way the IP is out there. It's they have the benefit of the video games, they have the benefit of the television shows, and all those things that help drive interest for Pokemon. Like I know specifically, I love to get Pikachu whenever they do a special insert and they put him in. He's got a Rayquaza hoodie or a Charizard hoodie, like all those little things. I love the Mario and Luigi Pikachu's,
Yeah.
and I'm not thinking about playing anything with that. I just want those as collectibles. And Magic, a little bit more on that hardcore play side. And then you see where it falls for Flesh and Blood. One Piece, again, One Piece is one where it's driven off of the big anime franchise. So a lot of people that are coming in for that franchise. But when you look at this, like the thing you can take away from this is that, yes, among those who say that Magic the Gathering is their favorite franchise, they are the
Mhm.
most game piece crowd, but it's still only 14.6% of Magic
Wow.
players, the Magic community, feeling that way. That's even more shocking to me than the overall number, right?
Right.
And even in that Magic the Gathering cohort, okay, even within that
Mhm.
most game piece skewed cohort, over 85% do care. They care, and then there's a spectrum of how much they care. So what that means is that more than 580% of Magic people more care versus what the market thinks care. It's a 5.8% increase. Excuse me, 5.8x increase, right?
Yeah.
Almost 6 times more giving a shit than what people for card values than what people like you and everyone else who's took the survey said that they think would happen, right? So there's a
Right.
perception that the market cares tremendously about game pieces and doesn't care about value when exactly the opposite is true. And then 368% care very much, 368% more than what the market
More.
does. So just an overwhelming amount of people caring. I mean, across, and then I go back all franchises, 90% of the market overestimates the
Mhm.
game piece sentiment. That's the
Wow.
takeaway here. That when asked this question, 90% of people absolutely overestimate the strength of the game piece sentiment
Yep.
within the CCG community. It's the highest in Magic, but it's not that high. And
Right.
across other franchises, it's absolutely skewed in the other direction, and the collector only and care about the value blows it out of the water.
Right. Yep. I want to point out too, we're not, this is not saying, and it's actually showing that people still care about playing. This is not just exclusively collectors. There's
100.
a category of that, but I just want to make sure what was surprising about all this and even shocking was how many people really care about collecting
Yep.
versus how many people don't care about playing. That's not the case. Most people do still care about it. But
Absolutely.
my
And
God,
the gameplay becomes a big piece of any collectible thesis in a game like this, in a CCG, right?
mhm,
If you don't have that's one of the main things that collectors will play into is what are the more powerful cards? What do players want? So the players
right.
do have a really strong effect on the thesis of how collectors behave. That's very true. And
Yeah.
they all
Yep.
participate in that same market in a what I believe is a very symbiotic way. And this is getting long, and I won't run
Mhm.
into that point. We need to cut another video about that, because I think there's also a gross misunderstanding of how your interests are aligned. I don't believe that the game piece folks that are out there understand how truly aligned they are with the evil investor.
Right.
And I'd like to unpack that maybe in another video. But for the sake of this one, I just really wanted to just show this. You pointed it out. It's something that you had missed on as a guy that is just totally endemic to this, right? You're playing all the
Yeah.
time, and it's something that I think really jumped out. We have tons of this type of data that we're using to make sure that that we're building the right way, and it's no different than the things that I've built in the past. And I'm confident that this data is going to give us a better result. Now it's up to folks like Brian. I mean, our game designer Brian Tinsman. He's written books on building
Yeah.
CCGs. He's done, I think, I don't want to misquote it, but I want to say it was 10 Magic sets. He's been with the
Yep.
Pokemon company. He's worked for Marvel. I mean, he has got the chops, right? And
Yeah.
so I'm very confident that he and the team that we've put around him are going to deliver a very fresh and exciting game experience. You're a player, you've play tested, so you can speak to that a
Yep.
lot better even than I can, because I will admit I love CCGs. I always have. I have a really nice collection of CCGs, but I'm what a lot of people would label as the collector evil investor type. Like, I've never met a Charizard I don't like. I've never met a Black Lotus I don't
Yeah.
like, but I don't play with those cards. And so you've played. Like, what do you think? You like the game?
Oh yeah, I love the game. I mean, one of the things that's really great about it are some aspects of Magic that make it so complicated. What a lot of people want out of a TCG game is ease of use to figure out how to play it initially, and then the depth of it so that you can actually add your strategy, deck building, whatever it is, to whatever level you want. But you know what? I can play someone who spends all the time deck building, and I can still beat them with my deck that I just created in 10 minutes ago. So what I really like about this is the length of time on a lot of these TCG games are crazy. With Wonders of the First CCG game, what you see, especially with how Tinsman did it, is that you don't have these interrupts all the time. So when it's your turn, it's your turn. And it's not me interrupting every single thing you do and then creating a stack of actions that we have to parse through to figure out what the result is.
Yep.
I hate that.
Yeah, no, and
And
I
the
don't
other,
want to steal. I don't want to steal their thunder, because obviously I want them to
that's a
talk
good
about
point.
all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But for me in my seat, I had to put the right people in, and that's what I do. Right, I'm a builder that I build teams that execute on something, and we come in and we have a strategy that we're going after, and I know that Brian and those around him are absolutely looking to do that, to make sure this is a skill expression game, but also to do some things better. And then I'm the guy on the other side that's kind of fighting for collectability. And we're going to bring
Right.
some really freaking innovative things to CCG collectability. We are going to do some things that have never been done before. We won't unpack all those here. Real excited about that. I don't want to get all salesy on you guys. I wanted to truly just bring you this data, because I think it's important that the market begin to understand this. And so I'm sure this may get lit up in comments or whatever. People will find ways to try
Yeah.
to attack it. I'm very confident in the data. I'm very confident in the methodology, very confident in how we sampled it. And I'm
Yep.
willing to stand behind all of those things. And I've got logo walls and success stories as long as I am tall,
Yeah.
for big companies that have literally paid us 10 to 20 times what they could get market research done for, just so they could get the right damn answer. Because market
Right.
research with the wrong answer leads you to do stupid things. And I firmly believe that in strategy rooms around the CCG industry, there have been some really stupid decisions made off of really shitty data, because they paneled and sampled the wrong people. That's the big
Yep.
takeaway here. We're not going to do that. We're going to build on the back of the best data. And I think we're going to deliver something that I think the market is going to find very refreshing. So we're up against 40 minutes already. I don't want this to run too long. Did you have anything else you wanted to wrap up with here, Fish? And then
Yeah.
we're going to be coming back and talking to you guys about more. So I mean, if you're not following us, hop on the newsletter. We'll link the actual survey if you want to go in and take it. That's fine. Go ahead, and we have ways to make sure that we don't Even if we get attacked by people that are trying to change the data, we have ways to sniff all that kind of stuff out. So feel free to go in and jump on it and take it if you want. Get on our list. Stay up to date with what we have going on. And look, I'm not saying you have to buy our product, but I just love for you to be more educated about the market in general. We're going to truly try to provide that to you as a value add, whether you ever touch our product or not. And we can all be friends and talk around the interesting findings of that. And I promise I'll give every game piece person, even though I disagree with you, I'll give you as much respect as you give, and we can have open and honest discussions. And then for those that do vibe with what we're building and think it's good, we would love to have you come in and explore more with us in our Discord server. On our list, we've got some really interesting stuff that'll be dropping pretty soon. You're here early. You're here before our websites even stood up. So if you talk about wanting to be early to something, this is about as dadgum early as you could ever be to something. So thanks so much for giving us your time. And then Fish, if you want to wrap it up, I'll let you have last word.
Yeah, I want to say two things from a player standpoint. One is I thought for sure collectors and players, the two ends of the spectrum, I thought they were polarizing. I thought they were both big camps, with the player being much bigger and the collectors being smaller, but essentially polar opposites. What I found is through the data and the spectrum you showed, it is all in the middle. People want both. They want both. And it's crazy how many people want both. And we always thought it was polarizing because of the boards, the messages, the people so adamant about one side or the other. That's one thing. The second one is pretty simple. I believe in this game. I believe in the collectability of it. And I think some others probably are that are listening to it right now. What I want to know is this first offering that you're going to do is going to be the alpha, the very first edition. I mean, I want to get in on that. So just like, how do I get in on that? When's it going to happen roughly? Just tease me with one thing in collectability that's unique.
Yeah, so I really appreciate you trying to take us there. Again, I truly want to I'm not trying to be so salesy here, but we're going to do some things we're going to do a Kickstarter for the game. It's going to come up in late March. We will have things that you will have never seen before. I'll tease one. In our Collect and Play Booster, our flagship product, you will be able to hit an insert that will allow you to own IP rights to the character in the game. Now, own rights. You have usage rights. You can commercialize the character. It doesn't mean that we don't own the character, but imagine if in first edition Pokemon, if you had hit that insert, that one-of-one insert for Pikachu, and you could now print to this day Pikachu on t-shirts or make toys out of him or do all types of things with your own licensing. That is one of the unique things that we're building to build alongside a community. And those inserts will be in the Collect and Plays. They'll be fully transferable on secondary markets. We have really interesting tech on how we'll track all of that. That's just one thing. There's plenty more.
Wow.
There's plenty more.
Wow.
And leaning into the actual cards themselves, the things that we're going to do around the various frameworks. We've got a lot of other stuff that we're going to do. We're also not going to reprint cards. That's crazy. We're going to do it, and we're not going to have power creep. Brian's got a plan. We can tell you what that plan is. We're going to honor collectability. We're going to do innovative things that the market's never seen before, and I can't wait to unpack more and more of that for you. But it truly didn't intend to get salesy here. I appreciate my buddy Fish trying to throw me a softball there. I'll go ahead and take it a little bit. We'll tease a few things, but just stick around. And if you're not on the list, get on the list. And again, if you don't vibe with it, fine. I think you'll learn something. If at the end of this, if you follow along with us, even if you don't buy our product, if you don't learn something, you send me a message and I'll buy you a Starbucks or something for the time. Because I think we're going to show you some things, and because I know that we have data that other people don't have, and I think it'll make you have a better and deeper understanding of this market that we all love so very much. So, Fish, thanks for the softball. Thanks for joining me on this, and for everyone out there, thank you so much for this. I hope you find this interesting, and we'll have more to come.
Thank you.